So the countdown is winding to a close. The 2021 NBA Finals are over. Congrats to the Milwaukee Bucks, NBA champions, especially the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo for his dominant, legendary performance in that series. What that means is we're a few days away, just a few days away from the 2021 NBA Draft. And I come to you with an updated mock. It's another one-round edition, the last mock draft that I'll do, which will come up probably the morning of the NBA Draft, will be a two-round edition, so you actually see who I might mock to the Chicago Bulls. It's a one-round edition here. Make sure you tell me what you think about it, what you think are some of the things that are going to play out, because I'd imagine the next couple of days we'll start to be able to sort through some of the noise and figure out some of the rumors and some of what we're hearing and some of what we're talking about. Players rising, players falling, players being drafted out of nowhere. I'm sure we're going to get all of that over the next few days. Still seems pretty likely at this point that the top two picks in this draft are pretty well set in stone, with Cade Cunningham going to Detroit and then Jalen Green going to Houston. I still wonder, there seems to be some intrigue a little bit with the Cleveland and Toronto picks. Now, is that legitimately because there's legit intrigue, or it's just media trying to hype up things to talk about? Are teams just putting that stuff out there because they're trying to generate action? I don't know. Like, when I look at Cleveland, a lot of people are landing on Evan Mobley there, and I'm still landing on Evan Mobley there. Although I do really wonder, like, if you already have Jared Allen and you're going to keep Jared Allen, why would you double down with Evan Mobley? It seems really odd to me. Especially with a guy like Jalen Suggs on the board. Gives you an opportunity to perhaps move on from Colin Sexton. You could play Suggs and Garland, or maybe you try to talk to Houston and say, like, hey, if you guys like Evan Mobley so much, we'll give you a future first rounder. Let us go from 3 to 2 so we can take Jalen Green. That way we could play Garland at the 1. Like, I don't know. Cleveland's in one of those awkward spots. We'll see if there's another team that wants to come up and draft him, or maybe even draft a guy like a Jalen Suggs, who I've still got going forward to Toronto, although you're starting to hear more reports about how the Toronto Raptors really love Scottie Barnes, and he's certainly a possibility or an option there. With Siakam and Anunoby, like, that feels a little weird that you would be targeting a Scottie Barnes. But I got to remember, too, like, as much positionless basketball as we see nowadays, it's not that surprising that you would double or triple up on guys that could play similar roles, because you could play them on the floor potentially at the same time. I still think Suggs is the logical choice for Toronto, and he makes the most sense, and we'll see what they ultimately do. I do think Scottie Barnes will go 5th, worst case scenario, to Orlando. Seems to be a lot of other people are landing on that Kuminga drops just a tad and that Barnes goes 5th. And I look at him for Orlando, like, he's the type of guy you bring in. No, he doesn't have the most game on the offensive end of the floor right now, but he is an elite level defender that can defend positions 1 all the way probably to the 5. And he's got that passion and that leadership that you really like out of a young prospect. You're trying to rebuild a team. You're trying to build a culture. Scottie Barnes is a culture pick. Now, you got to be careful sometimes, because culture picks, you might take guys that build a better culture than bring better talent, but I think Scottie Barnes is a good combination of the two. Actually, I had a little bit of debate for this one with the Thunder. Like, does Bouknight make more sense? Does Kuminga make more sense? Does a guy like Sengun make more sense? Does Giddey make more sense? Like, to me, I'm not as sold as what the Thunder could do at pick 6. I think there's a lot of different options of what they could do here. Personally, I would, if I were them, I'd be trying to move up just a little bit, get quantity over quality. I know you have a ton of first-round picks, but leverage some of those. Like, I know you're picking at 6, and then you're picking again at 16, and picking again at 18. Like, couldn't you package, 6 and 16 to move up to 4, maybe? I'm just saying. But in this case, I did have him land on Bouknight, which gets interesting for me with Golden State at 7. I had him taking Kuminga. I don't know that Kuminga really lands where they need in terms of their window to compete and window to contend right now. But this would also be a situation where they might be drafting a Kuminga to trade with somebody else to bring in a veteran that could help that here and now window, potentially. But if they were going to do that, I might be just as intrigued by a Giddey for them. Like, here's a guy that you could play at the 2 or the 3, but handles a lot of the point forward, lead guard type of responsibilities. Be a primary ball handler to help out Steph, secondary ball handler to complement Steph. But right now I haven't taken Kuminga. For Orlando at 8, Sengun I do think makes a lot of sense. I've seen him kind of be all over the place in a lot of different mock drafts, and I have been looking at other mock drafts to get some kind of basis or comparison. But I see, people having him go 8th like I do, or 9th to Sacramento. I have people having him at the tail end of the lottery, like to San Antonio, or maybe to Indiana, or even going down to like Washington or Oklahoma City. There's a wide varying range there. And he certainly has some flaws in his game, but what he's done in the Turkish league at his age is pretty impressive. To me, I'd be stunned if he wasn't a top 10 pick. That's just me. The guy that excites me about where he might go, Giddey to New Orleans. New Orleans fans are probably going to sit there and say, well, they already have a point guard. Oh, how does this help keep Zion happy? It maybe doesn't. But maybe it does. You're the Pelicans. You got to swing for the fences here, and you got to go for upside as much as anything, because that either is going to help you keep Zion happy long term, or potentially prepare you for life after Zion. Or maybe you find a way to take Giddey at this 10th pick and find a team that's interested in him and trade for a veteran, a shooter that can help you right away. That could be it too. But as you go through this, I didn't know if I felt really good about Davion Mitchell going 14 to Golden State. I didn't know how realistic or likely that was. I mean, it could happen because other teams could look at him and say he's a little bit undersized relative to the point guard position. He's already 21, 22 years of age. He's great on the defensive end. He'd be a good secondary ball handler, but how much upside is there truly on the offensive side of the ball? Feels more like role player, high-level role player than real star type of potential. And sometimes when teams draft these guys that have high-level role player talent this high instead of guys with more star upside that are 18, 19 years of age, they end up paying the price for it. So there might be other teams that pass on him. There might be. If Golden State was able to get him at 14, though, they got to be jumping for joy, because he would bring something to the table for them and be an immediate contributor, be a guy that more closely matches the window of what contention that Golden State is thinking about right now. But as I look at this, trying to figure out where the rest of this draft runs through the rest of the first round, and I'll say that I feel at some point in time, this draft class is loaded with a lot of point guard talent and a lot of combo guard type of talent. And you're going to start seeing those guys go, and I'm assuming some type of big run on them once you get to pick 18 and later. I would be surprised if it wasn't a bunch of ones and a bunch of combo guards that were drafted from, let's say, pick 18 all the way to pick 30. And you look at here, what I've got Sharife Cooper going 19, and then Deuce McBride going 24, Dosunmu going 25, Quentin Grimes 26, Jared Butler 28, Chukwuemeka 29, and Bones Highland from VCU 30. It's a pretty good class for these guys. You'll be man, you don't even have Trey Mann in round one. He might not be. That doesn't mean I necessarily agree with it. It's just that's the reality of it. So if you're a team that's looking for a point or a combo guard that could come in and play some NBA minutes from day one, this is a draft you want to be in. You hear that, Bulls? Just saying. But as I look at this, who are some players that I expect to rise a little bit? The Chris Duarte thing is interesting to me because he absolutely is ready to play and contribute day one. Like Dylan Brooks type, similar school, maybe lazy comparison, maybe not so much. But Duarte is a day one high-level shooter at the NBA. But he's also 24 years of age, so how much more upside does he really have? But he could play and contribute day one. Do some other teams higher up, maybe in the middle of round one, value that and overlook the age factor? Or do you have somebody like the Knicks or the Lakers put a lot of value on a guy like Duarte who can shoot, who can space the floor, who can contribute right away? You look at Trey Murphy III, another 3-and-D type of guy. I could imagine Thibodeau would love him. And I'd be stunned if they didn't take a pass at him, assuming that Trey Murphy would even be there. But he's got length, defensive versatility, and he can shoot. These guys are pretty valuable in today's league. So I look at him, and I say guys like Murphy and Duarte have an incredible amount of appeal. Dosunmu, he's got some questions to me, especially showed up in the NCAA tournament about how he handles pressure, kind of a little bit of the sloppiness of his ball handling. But there's no doubt that he's got versatility. There's no doubt that he's got some real defensive skills that translates, and a team like the Clippers would benefit quite a bit, especially if they have to move on from a Reggie Jackson for bringing a Dosunmu in. This is a really good backcourt class is what I'm trying to say. Front court, it's a lot of threes and 3-4 combo guys. some even stretch fours. It's a pretty good class. In general, this draft is pretty good, I guess is what I'm talking about. Because you have some clear-cut elite talent. That second tier is pretty extensive. Even the third tier has guys that you feel pretty confident in that they're going to contribute. You have some of those guys that you're pounding the table. You think they could be tier 2, where you might even think, crazy enough, one of them could be a tier 1 guy. And you certainly probably have a tier 2 guy in this draft that you're pounding the table for that you think might be a tier 1 type of guy. And I think for this draft, some folks are going to look at a guy like Bouknight and think, like, this is a tier 1 type of dude. They might look at a Moses Moody or a Josh Giddey and say, that's a tier 1 type of dude, a top 4 to 5 player in this draft for 3 or 4 years. It's a good draft for you have a number of picks. So teams like the Thunder, teams like Orlando, teams like the Knicks, the Rockets, if they don't come out of this draft a lot better, for the long term, then shame on them, because the talent is certainly there for them to be able to do so.